So as I drive down this highway on a dark and not so stormy night, I can only think of one piece of advice to give to you. When someone backs you up against the wall and asks if you paid your dues, you look them in the eye and you tell them, "Kurt Crucial, have you paid your dues?" Yeah, the check is in the mail. Now while you're thinking about that, think about this. Tonight, I'm going to be trying to track down the filming locations for Big Trouble in Little China, and hopefully finding some locations that no one's ever discovered before. So I'm asking you to join me in this journey as I hunt down the filming locations for the 1986 classic, Big Trouble in Little China. So, let's go see what we can find. The movie begins with Jack Burton driving down the highway in his big rig, giving some advice and enjoying a hoagie. Now to let us know that he's driving into San Francisco, there's a shot of him driving across the Golden Gate Bridge. Now in order to get the exact shot that we see in the movie, I believe that it was taken from right up here at the Battery Spencer Vista Point. Yep, there it is. Now it does look slightly different because there's this safety fence to stop you from falling off the edge of the cliff, and that's kind of getting in our way of getting the exact shot. But this does look pretty close to what you see in the movie. So when Jack's getting into town, he shows up to the produce area, and that's where he meets up with his buddy Wang, and they stay up all night doing some gambling. Now that produce area wasn't actually in San Francisco, but it was right here in downtown Los Angeles. Now this lot right here behind me, this used to be a parking lot for the Greyhound station, which used to be located right over here. But back in the day, this was a produce place, and the address was 725 Channing Street. And you can see the address 725 when Jack is getting into town. Now all of these buildings back here, these are still produce places, but I've been back there and checked them out, and I don't think any of these are original buildings. I think all of them were torn down and rebuilt. There is one building over there on that side that looks original. It's called Panda Produce, but I've gone through that scene a bunch, and I don't think you can see Panda Produce. So unfortunately, there's nothing left here that can be seen in the movie, but this is where that scene was filmed. And if you're still not certain, just take a look at the call sheet. So Jack escorts Wang to the airport so he can pick up his girlfriend Miao Yin. But suddenly, the Lords of Death appear out of nowhere and they kidnap Miao Yin at gunpoint. And Jack, he has no idea what's going on.
Where'd you get that?
So right after they leave the airport, there's a very quick shot of Jack's truck driving on the freeway, and that's taken from 20th Street right over here. So the shot begins looking down at the highway. It then quickly pans up, and we get this shot. Now you can see it looks a little bit different. There's some new buildings that have been added, but all of the buildings that you can see in the movie are still there. Plus, you see that exit for Mariposa Street. Like I said, very quick shot, but this is it right here from 20th Street looking at the 280. Okay, on to the next spot. Now right after that, there's another very, very quick scene where Jack is driving on the freeway and he gets cut off by the Puma truck. And I was gonna show that to you next, but that was filmed on a small section of the 280 that connects to the Bay Bridge, and it turns out that that section of the freeway was demolished or is being demolished, I'm not sure, but it's no longer accessible, so can't show you that. All right, on to Chinatown. Bush and Grant. This is the spot where Egg Shen's tour bus is coming down the street right here and then makes a left turn onto Grant and heads up this hill. Turning onto Commercial from Grant, this is where Egg Shen's tour bus rounds the corner. It's now coming down the street this way as Jack Burton is coming up the street right towards Egg Shen. Right here is where the lady is walking and she almost gets hit by the tour bus that's coming right at her. So that's actually going to do it for Chinatown and for San Francisco. But there's a couple of other spots back in Los Angeles. So let's head there now. So they turn into the alley and they drive down to the other end. And as I already showed you, when they're turning into the alley, that was filmed in San Francisco. But when they get down to the other side, that was filmed right here in Los Angeles in Century City, California at Fox Studios. Now, most of the movie is filmed on sets. I'd say probably about 80% of it. And all of those sets were built on sound stages at Fox Studios, including the alley set. Pretty impressive. Now, fun fact, that same alley set from Big Trouble in Little China was used for the Janet Jackson music video, When I Think of You. Love that song. Now, according to John Carpenter, while they were filming Big Trouble in Little China, he saw Michael Jackson walking around the sets, and then a little bit later, the Janet Jackson music video came out. If you look at this opening scene from the Janet Jackson music video, this is actually the same spot where Jack's coming around the corner in his truck. Notice those 4 windows on the left with the utility pole, and also the door and the 2 windows on the right. The spot where Janet's singing on the balcony is the very same spot where the lady is cutting up the duck. Pay attention to that woodwork on the banister, it matches up perfectly. The spot where Janet's walking down the street towards the end of the video is the same place where they see the funeral. You can match up this lamp and some of the buildings. The spot where Janet and her friends are dancing is the same place where Jack and Wang run into the Lords of Death. Notice that structure right behind Janet's crew? That can be seen to the right of Jack. And the spot where Janet gets her picture taken by the paparazzi is the same place where Jack runs over Lo Pan. Now obviously you can see the stairs, but just to the right of those stairs are 3 windows that are a little bit harder to see, but they're easier to make out in the Janet Jackson video. Now after that big fiasco in the alley, they're trying to figure out what to do next, and that's when Wang says that he has an idea. And they dress up Jack to look stupid.
He does.
And they take him to the White Tiger. And what a lot of people don't know is the White Tiger building still exists. As far as I know, nobody else has figured this out, but the White Tiger building is right here in LA, once again in Century City at Fox Studios. Now, if you look right here, just beyond that guard shack, you'll see some facades of old buildings, and that's the beginning of what I believe they call New York Street. And on New York Street is where you'll find the White Tiger building. So the scene starts with them driving down this street, passing by this building, and they then make a left turn. Now, luckily, I was able to find a couple of pictures online. This is the exact spot where they're making that left turn. They make a left, and then they park across the street right in front of this building. They basically would have been parked right here, although you don't see this in the movie. Now you get the best shot of the White Tiger building when they're passing by. And is it just me, or is that the Madame Ruby sign from Pee-wee's Big Adventure? Now this right here,
This is the White Tiger building, and it's kind of hard to see because of the shadow and because it's been painted black, but again, luckily I was able to find some pictures online, and here it is. This is the White Tiger, and as you can see, not too much has changed, except for it's now black instead of white, but other than that, the building pretty much looks the same. So if you're ever lucky enough to be on the Fox lot, now you can stop by and say hi.
Boy, sure is raining cats and dogs.
So Jack and Wang head down to the Wing Kong Trading Company, and a good majority of the movie supposedly takes place inside of the Wing Kong Trading Company. So I'm excited to say that I found where that building was, but unfortunately it's been torn down. It used to be located right here on the corner of Imperial Street and Jesse Street. Now the building that used to be on this corner, I believe it started out as a biscuit company. It then became Mission Furniture, but by the 80s, it was just a large abandoned brick building, and it was used in a bunch of different movies, including Big Trouble in Little China, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, Naked Gun, and They Live. And I think you probably get the best shots of this building in I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. If you look at the windows that you see in that movie, notice how they're rounded at the top, notice the design of the bricks above the windows, and notice how they have 10 panes of glass. They match up exactly with the windows that you see in Big Trouble in Little China, and you probably get the best shot of those windows after they escape from Wing Kong Trading Company and the bus is driving away. So of course, I'm glad that I solved the mystery of where this building was, but I'm extremely bummed that it's been torn down, especially since so many awesome 80s movies were filmed here. Why couldn't they just leave this building alone? Oh well, what are you gonna do?
Now, according to the call sheet that I found, there were some Wing Kong interior shots that were also filmed at the old Mission Furniture building, like the main lobby where the security guards are sitting, and also the employee elevator that Jack and Wang use. So I guess not all of the sets were built over at Fox Studios. Now, I also noticed on the call sheet another address for the interiors of Wing Kong, 440 Seton Street in downtown Los Angeles. And this is a building that I'm already familiar with because this building was used in The Golden Child and Tough Turf. But sometime around 1986, this is where they built the Wing Kong Detention Center. This is where they had all the women locked up, and Jack and Wang come here and they have to fight all the female guards and try and rescue the prisoners. Now, in the beginning of that scene, you can see a catwalk and a brick wall with 3 windows. And obviously the inside of the building has changed, but here you can see a brick wall with 3 windows that match up with the ones that we see in the movie. So right up there is where they built those sets. Nowadays, 440 Seton Street is an event space used for weddings and corporate events and parties and pretty much anything, but occasionally they still use it for filming just like they did back in the 80s for Big Trouble in Little China. So before heading back to Battle Lo Pan and rescue Gracie Law and Miao Yin, they stop at Egg Shen's place, which might already look familiar to you. This is the historic number 23 firehouse in downtown Los Angeles, and not only was this used in Big Trouble in Little China, but this was also used in The Mask with Jim Carrey, and most famously, this was used for the interiors of the Ghostbusters firehouse in Ghostbusters Part 1 and Part 2. Now, the firehouse has been closed to the public for some time now, and it's currently being completely renovated. I was able to find a couple of pictures online showing what it looks like during renovation. Now, this is pretty close to the shot that we get of Egg Shen's place, except for the camera would have been up there on those stairs looking down on the interiors of the firehouse. And yep, that's the same spot where Ray would have been working on the Ecto-1 in Ghostbusters. Now, supposedly, the fire station will be open to the public again sometime in the near future, and movie fans will be able to come down here and enjoy it.
Now, I still can't believe that I found this location. So after Jack finds where they're keeping his truck, he jumps in and they break through the door and they take off down the street. And right here, this is the building where they were supposedly keeping his truck. And the door that he breaks through used to be located right here, where this large window is. This is where the door was that he breaks through. And there's a few different ways that we can tell. First of all, those 2 utility poles right there, those are still the same. You can also figure it out by the other windows around it, but also if we go back on Google Maps and take a look, the door is still there. And if you look in the movie, when he busts through the door, right here, just to the right of the door, there's some damage on the bricks that was repaired. There's like a bracket or something. All of that is gone now because they redid the bricks. But if you go on Google Maps and go back a few years, all of that is still there. Another thing, take a look at the roof line and notice how it changes heights. That can also be seen in the movie. Now, once he busts through the doors, he backs up right here, and you can see this building, which used to be, this all used to be loading docks. This has been converted into luxury apartments now, but at the time, in the 80s, these were loading docks. It still has the same awning right there, and also the fire escapes that have now been turned into balconies. So he takes off down the street this way, and as he's speeding down the street, there's a bunch of police cars coming towards him, and there's now a parking garage in place of the building that you see in the movie. Everything over here has changed, but once again, if you go on Google Maps and go back a few years, you get a pretty similar view to the one that you see in the movie.
Alright, that is going to do it for the Big Trouble in Little China filming locations. I gotta say, I'm pretty proud of a couple of those locations that we hunted down. Hopefully you enjoyed it. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.